May 23rd, 7:27 p.m. in the evening. This is Tech Tales 18. I might get interrupted by a phone call, in which case I'm just going to edit out that section and then continue afterward. And today is a Thursday. My first on my list was a phone support with Roland CPA. I think I've talked to you about their office before. We did an upgrade for QuickBooks that I talked you through. I'm going to make an adjustment to this camera. And his issue was that his cell phone was not able to receive phone calls or place phone calls or do texts or emails, and he was getting a message saying that he needed to install an update to the operating system first. And he's asking me, how do I install an update to the operating system when I can't connect to anything? So I talked to him about connecting his cell phone, his iPhone 5, to his computer with the cable that he uses for charging it. So he said he would do that, and you're going to need to install iTunes in order to do the update. Now, I thought connecting an iPhone to a computer would prompt for installing iTunes, but it did not. We wound up concluding that it would be more feasible for me to come over to his office later in the day to do that for him. So that we 3-minute phone call for that. Then I went to Phil's office. I've talked to you about him before. He handles the retirement accounts, defined benefit plans, and manages them. His daughter has 2 laptop computers, and she's reporting that the DVD drives on them aren't working or aren't working consistently. That's a little bit ambiguous right now, quite the details on it. So anyway, I picked up those laptops, and I'll be working on those in the next day or two. Then I had lunch with my dad and brothers and did a couple of other errands and made a deposit at the bank. And then headed towards Roland's office. And just as I was around the corner, he called me and asked if I could postpone a little bit. They had a little urgent issue needing to repair a leaking tire on his wife's car. So I said sure, and I diverted to another client's office. Just got on the freeway. His office is right near on rent for the freeway, and went to the other client's office and exited there. And you know that client too. That's the PW Law office. And I had a few items to take care of there, and I knew they weren't going to take very long, so I'd be able to get back to Roland's office. At PW, I swapped their backup hard drives for the 2 servers, and then I met with Bob for a bit to talk more about OneDrive issues, that list of questions that I had for him or issues I wanted to talk about. We got through all of that just fine. Then one of his staff members had called me earlier in the morning, and I guess I didn't even put that in my notes. Typically I don't, for a call just asking me to come out and do something, I don't put that in as a time slip, because that's not actually solving anything over the phone. For her, I needed to remove her office email account from her old cell phone that she was replacing and add it to the new cell phone. So that was a fairly quick thing to do. It used to be a longer, more troublesome thing to do when we were using POP3 accounts. When we moved to the Microsoft Office 365 as our email host, it's a whole lot easier now. Then I went back to Roland's office and worked on his cell phone. Confirmed indeed that connecting it to his computer does not prompt for installing iTunes. So I just went to the iTunes website and installed the software. Connected his computer, and it started synchronizing to iTunes. It did a backup and a synchronization, and then prompted for installing the operating system update. So we did that. and finished it just fine. When it finished, then his phone was able to place and receive phone calls and emails and texts, and that's all working fine. Then when I got back here to my home, I started working remotely on Holly's computer. She had also called me earlier in the day that she's ready for her migration to OneDrive. Holly is Bob's wife. So I've been connected to her computer for, I've got a time charge here of 2 hours and 14 minutes. This has turned out to be quite the difficult task, because what happens when you start, well, now let's back up a little bit. I had a similar problem with her that I had with Bob with getting OneDrive to accept the password for her account. And I'm giving a little refined explanation here of how it worked out. I had told you previously with Bob's computer, I went to OneDrive.com website and signed in there and was prompted for his business or personal account. Well, I'm giving a little correction here because that doesn't even work. What I have to do is, without signing in to the OneDrive website, is click on a button to install the software. Let the software install on the computer, and when it prompts for the account credentials, it still won't work. So just ignore that, let the software get installed on the computer, and then right-click on the icon in the system tray and connect it to Microsoft account. In doing it that way, it asked me whether I wanted the work account or the personal account, and I chose the work account, and then that worked just fine. Began doing the synchronization. So the first part of the synchronization is to download whatever's in the cloud already. Well, there was nothing in the cloud for her because she didn't have any other computers already configured with this. So then it got to the stage where it's asking if I want to do pictures and desktop and my documents. And it has a check mark available for pictures and desktop. And I went to check and found that she does have pictures. So I left that checked. I removed the check mark for desktop. I confirmed that she doesn't have anything actually stored on the desktop. They're all just shortcuts and program icons as it ought to be, and no actual documents stored on the desktop. The documents selection did not have a check mark because it had already begun evaluating the documents, and it was displaying one file name saying that it's too long. So I went into Windows Explorer, found that file, and abbreviated it, changed the wording to abbreviate it, and then click try again. So then it shows another file that was too long. I go change it, and another, and another, and another, and another. And I think let's see, so my time charge on there now is 2 hours and 14 minutes, so it must have been about an hour and a half into it. I did a little random checking and found that there were some files where it had dozens of files that were similarly named, where maybe the first 80 characters of the file names were identical and the last 30, 40 characters were different. So I decided to install a utility that I've used before called Bulk Rename Utility. Very powerful, very slick, a little bit of learning curve for how to use it. So I installed it and began evaluating this folder that I was currently getting hits for file names too long. And at the moment I've got a setting that says I only want to see file names that have more than 120 characters. In that folder, there's 95 of them. And now prior to this, I used the bulk rename utility on her computer for the mass number of files that had the same beginning of the file names, and I renamed those, got those out of the way, and I think that it displayed a number, I think it was like 80 files that operation renamed. So now these 95 files that I'm finding that exceed 120 characters, there are not common file names to them. There's maybe 3 or 4 files in different groupings that have the beginning of the file names similar. So it's going to be quite difficult for me to abbreviate those. So I called Holly to let her know that we need to talk about this, about possibilities of what we can do. I have no idea what the likelihood is that she's going to need these. And the names of these documents are so long because they're legal documents about real estate transactions. She's an attorney and I guess maybe a real estate attorney, among other things. She's very she's had a very active life in the law world and politics, I think, or organizations. I'm not quite sure. Pretty sophisticated, complicated life that I think she has been involved in. So anyway, these long document names that are really descriptive and probably quite useful for her. But if it's likely that she's not going to need to access many of these, what I'm going to propose to her is to take the first 80 characters, we'll keep them as they are, and then the next 20 characters, or whatever remaining characters there are, I'll change those to, I don't know, maybe incremental numbers, because this rename utility lets me do that. Some way to shorten up the amount of time that this is taking. Because even taking the first 80 characters, there's going to be some duplicates. There may be 2, 3, 4 files that have the same first 80 characters. So that's quite a unusual circumstance. Now, back with Bob at his office earlier in the day, we finally did get into his personal Microsoft account. And I talked to him about it, told him I need you here so that we can recover the password. That's probably going to involve security questions or text to your phone or something to unlock that. And so he said he had me try a couple of passwords from his past, 2 of them that did not work. And then the third one was just the very simplest base level of a password sequence that he commonly uses. Now, this was a 6-character word, all lowercase letters, and it worked. That was the password on that account. Well, of course, being times the way they are, Microsoft 365 immediately said, you got to change this password. Made us put in a new password, and it sent another text. Well, actually, the text to his phone for the security code didn't work, and it turned out the reason for that is it had the right cell phone number for him, but it only had the last digit of the 3-digit area code. So that's strange that ever got entered into there, because I suspect when you enter a cell phone number these days, it won't let you skip the first 2 letters of the area code. But it said that it sent us the text message to this, what would that be, a 8-digit cell phone number? That's not valid. So we were able to have it send email to him and get the security code that way, or verification code, whatever Microsoft Office calls it. And we got his password changed to a complex password of proper complexity. So that is a pretty good wrap for today. I'm expecting a call back from Holly. Now, I wanted to get her computer migrated over to OneDrive tonight because at 4 a.m. in the morning, they're going back to the coast. And they want to shut their computers off for that trip. So if she's not able to get back to me in reasonable time, I think we'll just probably postpone this migration to OneDrive for her. Okay, let's call that a wrap. Have a great day. I hope this is useful to you, and catch you next time. Bye.